Well, I know that you're aware of what's happening around Europe right now as far as migration is concerned. And you have all seen the news headlines. Actually, you are the ones writing the reports. And now you know why I'm here. I've been here today at the request of President Juncker, whom I spoke with again this morning and who, like me, remains gravely concerned by the situation in our member states. Today, the world finds itself facing the worst refugee crisis since the Second World War. And Europe finds itself struggling, fighting to deal with the high influxes of people seeking refuge within our borders. As far as Greece is concerned, firstly, the situation in the country I know best has become particularly urgent. Almost 50,000 migrants arrived in July compared to less 6,000 last year for the same month. Managing the situation is, of course, first and foremost a sovereign responsibility of the member states. We provide help where we can and to the greatest extent possible, without, of course, replacing national responsibilities. And I commend the Greek authorities for their efforts to deal with a situation that it would be an understatement to describe as challenging. Yesterday, I was in Athens to meet with the Minister of the Interior and the ministers responsible for migration, coordination of government's work, public order and citizen protection, maritime affairs and health and social security. Together, we came up with a game plan, a plan for how we can work together to address a problem that it is not Greek, a problem that it is European. The immediate operational conclusions of our meeting are funding. Earlier this week, the European Commission approved the national funding programme for Greece that amount to 474 million euros. As the Greek Prime Minister confirmed already last week, Greece is setting up the management authority for these funds. Once it is formalised, the first disbursement of 30 million euros will be made immediately after. As far as emergency funding is concerned, on top of this, the Commission is fast-tracking the Greek request for 2.74 million in emergency funding under the internal security funds to support the first reception response delivered by the United Nations to newly arrived migrants on the Aegean Islands. We talk about Tuesday or Wednesday. In May, the emergency money was doubled from 25 million to 50 million euros for 2015, with frontline countries like Greece in mind. I have therefore asked Greece to put in a further request for emergency funding under the Asylum Fund, which they will do. And now, as far as civil protection mechanism, I understand that Greece will trigger the civil protection mechanism to provide immediate humanitarian assistance, material to the eastern Aegean Islands. The assistance can include material assistance, expertise, intervention teams and modules, and specific equipment. I call on all EU member states to respond quickly to this call and show solidarity to Greece. I have full trust in my colleague, Commissioner Stylianidis, to coordinate this. Looking now beyond the next few days, the headquarters to implement the hotspot approach will be set up in the city of Piraeus to implement the hotspot approach already in place in Italy. There will be a meeting convened by the Commission of all European agencies in Greece on August 25th and 26th. The Greek authorities have committed to make progress on the Greek roadmap for asylum. I welcome their commitment to present shortly an effective plan to deal with the relocation of 16,000 people in clear need of international protection to other European Union's member states. We, the Commission, also commit to redoubling our efforts to cooperate with Turkey on the management of the crisis. I will very soon be visiting Turkey to discuss about this issue with the Turkish government. I'm happy to be able to count on the support of my colleagues, High Representative Mogherini and Commissioner Hahn, in this regard. I would like to reiterate my call on Member States to pledge the assets needed for Frontex joint operation Poseidon operating in the Aegean Sea without delay. The heads of state and governments of every one of the European Union's 28 member states unanimously committed to reinforcing the number of assets. A last note on Greece. We all know that the situation on the ground is not easy. We know the great pressure on the country and the difficulties faced in addressing it. We know that it is not unlinked to the economic situation. And I would like to express on my behalf and on behalf of this institution and its President my full support to Greece and to the Greek people. We will stand together to address the challenges that lay before us, showing solidarity and sharing responsibility. And now, what is the road ahead? Because if there is one thing that no one can deny any longer, it is that it is patently obvious that on matters of migration, it is Europe as a whole that it is concerned. No one of us is exempt. Let me touch briefly on some of the most pressing issues I see at this point in time. Hungary. If 50,000 people arrived in Greece in the month of July alone, more than in the entirety of 2014, 35,000 arrived in Hungary in the same period. Hungary is joining Italy and Greece as the member states the most exposed on the front line. I traveled to Budapest on the 30th of June and discussed the matter with the Hungarian government. And yesterday, we received the official request for 8 million euros in emergency assistance from Hungary to help expand reception capacities. The Commission will treat the request without delay. At the initiative of Hungary, a high-level conference will be held in October in order to address the rising challenges posed by increasing migratory flows to Hungary and Central Europe via the Western Balkans. And now about Austria. We have also received a request for emergency funding from Austria to help with the rapid expansion of its reception facilities. The independent committee that looks at the requests is meeting now to process in order to release the funds by the end of August. And now about Calais. Lastly, as you all know, the situation in Calais is another stark example of the need for a greater level of solidarity and responsibility in the way we deal with migratory pressures in Europe. I spoke with the Interior Ministers Theresa May and Bernard Cazeneuve last week and offered our support. I expect a second request for emergency funding on top of the €4 million granted to France in February to arrive shortly. But I understand that you agree with me that money alone will not solve the problem. This is a challenge we need to tackle from all angles. The Commission has set out a European response in the form of the European Agenda on Migration. 3 weeks ago, I told you during a conference like this that we must acknowledge the fact that this Commission has put very highly in its priorities the migration policy. What had not been done for the last 20 years, we managed to do it in only 9 months period. And we want and we ask everybody to help us and support our initiative. One of the key elements will be making returns more effective and stepping up our cooperation with countries of origin and transit. To this end, we will hold a summit in Valletta in November with all heads of states and key African countries, and I will travel to Niger with French Interior Minister Cazeneuve and others to advance on the setting up of the first pilot multi-purpose centre. You can also count on the Commission to continue the swift rollout of the agenda and come forward with further proposals on a relocation mechanism for use in future emergency situations, as promised at the end of the year. We will also work on return and the concept of safe country of origin. And now let me conclude. There is no simple nor single answer to the challenges posed by migration. And nor can any member state effectively address migration alone. It is clear that we need this new, more European approach. We need the collective courage to follow through on our commitments, even when they are not easy, even when they are not popular. I hope together we, member states, institutions, agencies, international organizations, third countries can prove we are equal to this challenge. I am convinced we are able. Europe's history, as nothing else, proves that we are a resilient continent, able to unite in face of that which seeks to divide us. Thank you very much for your attention.